My name's Adam Bergstein, and I'm helping here with Drupal Camp Asheville. Been a great day so far. I'm very excited to introduce Chris Burge, who's giving us a talk called Media is Now in Core, Let's Use It. I'm sure there'll be a lot of great information. It's a newer feature, so I'm excited to learn more about it. I'm going to go on mute and cut my video. Chris, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and cut my video so we just have the PowerPoint on screen. Okay, so for those of us who have been working with Drupal for a while, you'll know that having media in core is a big step forward, because to this point we've had to use various contrib modules, and it's been a little bit of a journey to get to where we are today. It started a little over 2 years ago when the first thing to go in was media entities. That went into core, and that was a big thing. And then we got media library, and then we got CKEditor integration. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. It's been a bit of a journey. I know in some of my older sites I used Entity Embed and Entity Browser, and I mean, that worked fine. It's really nice having a solution in core, though, because now it's no longer having to pick which contrib modules or contrib module ecosystems we think are going to be the winners down the road, because there have been more than just a couple of solutions for media in the contrib space. So first of all, it's going to be maintained. You don't have to worry about contrib module interactions, and you've already picked the winner going forward. So let's advance to the next slide. Where is that? Okay, so this is a speaker slide about me. I've worked with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for about 1.5 years now. And I'm working with their digital experience group, and we're in the process of moving our CMS from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So in terms of media in core, the first thing I want to talk about is media entities. So these are entities just like anything else that's an entity is. So like nodes are entities, users are entities. And this is a huge advantage over just having files. So if you might remember, you've probably built sites where you upload an image and then you can add alt text, and then that's kind of it. Or you can upload a file, like a PDF, and then you can add a description, but that's kind of it. Well, now that media is actually an entity, a media asset is now an entity, that gives us all kinds of options that we didn't have before. So that's going to mean, among other things, we can add fields to them. So if you want to tag media items, you can do that now. Configurable form display. So when people go to upload media, you can have some control over what that form looks like. You can configure a lot of that from the UI. Because they're proper entities, we also get to leverage display modes, and we can configure those as well. And then the last thing that ties back to that first item of fieldable entities is that when you have an image, for example, that image is going to have some metadata that's associated with it. So it might be the file size, the MIME type, some dimensions. When we go to add that image to our media library, we can capture that metadata and store it in Drupal fields. So now we can do all kinds of Drupal things with it, including filtering by views, etc. And when we initially turn on the media module, we're going to get 5 bundles that are going to be turned on by default. Bundle is a Drupalism for a type of entity. So in the case of nodes, we have content types. Content type is just a bundle. In this case, bundles are called media types. And we get 5 of them. We get audio, document, image, remote video, and video. With the exception of remote video, these are all things that we're going to upload to Drupal, to our web server, and then Drupal is going to serve them from our server. The exception is remote video. That's more of like you've ever used entity reference. We're not serving the content locally. it's going to effectively be a glorified embed from either Vimeo or YouTube. And we'll talk about more how that works here in just a minute. So I do want to talk a little bit more about how this metadata field mapping works. When we go to the edit page for a particular media type, one of the areas on that edit page is going to be for field mapping. And there's, this is just for image, there's 5 things that we can map. And what I did was, because it was quick and easy for a demo, for each one of these 5, I just created a field on the image media type with the exact same name. Then I mapped them one-to-one. So that's what's going on there. When we start looking at remote video, then we have lots more options. And so again, I created a field for each one of these, and they're all mapped. So then when we go add a YouTube video, most of these are going to be populated, and then they're going to be stored. So if you wanted to later do, sorts on things, you could sort for just YouTube videos, which would segregate them for maybe your YouTube or your other, whatever videos you might have on there. So this is a powerful feature, and we'll see how this ties in a little bit more here. And I do want to talk a little bit about what oEmbed is and how it works. So in the olden days, and you can still do this, but I discourage it, is that you can just let your users go to YouTube, go grab the embed code, which is going to be an iframe, and then insert in the HTML themselves. Well, that's a huge security risk to let your users just go grab iframes from the interweb and insert them into the content. So this is oEmbed's a solution for that. So what happens when we go to add a video? All we need is the URL. In this case, is a YouTube video. So we just copy the URL and then we paste it and click save. And what Drupal is going to do behind the scenes is it's going to go out to oembed.com/providers.json. And there's going to be 200 some defined providers, and this is what the definition for YouTube looks like. So I'll point out 2 things here. The first one is schemes. So this is going to be using regex. This is what a YouTube URL looks like. And then the second one down there is going to be a URL. That's going to be an API endpoint. So what ends up happening is that when we submit that YouTube URL, Drupal then is going to go send a request to that API endpoint with the YouTube URL, and then YouTube's going to respond with some JSON that looks like this. And again, this might look familiar: height, author name, author URL, etc. These are some of the same metadata we were mapping to fields earlier. So that's where that information comes from. Probably the most important one is going to be HTML. That's the embed code. That's what Drupal is going to render when this remote video is used on our site. So this is what the screen looks like when we go to add a remote video. It's just one field. Put it in there and click save. So we'll do that in the live demo here in just a little bit. As I was working through media, I had a couple things that stumbled on along the way. So the first time I set this up, the first time I tried it, it's like, all right, let's put a YouTube video in there. I have all my fields mapped, and I got this. And well, I don't think that's supposed to happen. So I did some debugging, and it turns out there was a bug, and I opened an issue for it. And if anybody's going to use this or uses the patch from this, I would encourage you to comment on the issue, let us know if it worked, let us know if it needs fixed or tweaked on it. The goal would be to get this reviewed and tested by community, so then it would have a chance of getting committed. But more or less what's happening here is that there's 2 provider URL and author URL metadata fields. Drupal chokes when you put a URL in them. And so this takes care of that. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the media integration. There is some configuration that's available. So the first thing I said that The providers list for oEmbed is downloaded from oembed.com/providers.json. That's not actually hard-coded. That is configuration in Drupal you can change, but Drupal core does not provide a UI to do that. So you can get your providers list from somewhere other than that. That's possible. Providers are allowed or disallowed on a per bundle basis. In this case, the only oEmbed enabled bundle that we have is remote video. And so this is what the media source configuration settings look like for that particular media type. And so there's YouTube and there's a Vimeo, those two checkboxes down there. That's where we control what's on and off. And that happens at the media type level. That's not a global setting. And Core UI only provides settings, settings for YouTube and Vimeo. Like in that providers.json file, there's I think over 240 providers. So if you want to use one of the others, then you have to do something else. And we will actually talk about what that something else is. It's on the next slide, and it is the oEmbed Providers module. This is something that we wrote at the University of Nebraska. It's going to do 4 things. The first thing it's going to allow us to do is to add custom oEmbed providers, because there's 240 some on that list, but there's more of them out there in the world than just that. And it might be useful that, if you have a Drupal site, that you can have your own oEmbed provider that doesn't live out there in some list on oembed.com. There's no good way to do this in Core right now. So what the oEmbed Providers module, this is like the primary reason why we wrote it, is that it provides an admin interface where you can go ahead and define your oEmbed provider and then save it, and then Drupal will add it to whatever list you're getting back from the providers.json file. These are using config entities. So when you save one of these, it's exportable. You can export it to YAML. And that's kind of a cool feature too. It also provides a global enable and disable providers. Right now, if you wanted to, make some other provider available to check that box on the media type, you have to do that in code. This provides a UI to do that, so you don't have to do it in code. It also allows us to change that the provider list URL. By default, it's going to go to oembed.com. A reason you might want to change that would be because maybe you're in Russia and that URL is blocked. That was something that someone cited as a reason. There's a core issue for that too, to provide the UI. So that'd be a reason why you might want to change that to something else. And then the last one is, we talked about how Drupal goes out and fetches that provider list. Well, that might not be necessary given your use case. In our use case, we have a custom provider, UNL Media Hub. It's an in-house, does the same thing basically YouTube does. But the reason we did that is because YouTube isn't viewable in places like China. If maybe some prospective students aren't going to be able to see your content. Also, sometimes the K-12 internet filters get a little aggressive. So that's one of the reasons why we went that route as opposed to putting content on YouTube. It's a bit of an aside. But in our case, there's no reason for us to go out to oembed.com and grab a providers list, because the only provider we're using is a custom provider. So there's a checkbox. We can just turn that fetch off. There's no reason for Drupal to go getting that list anyway. So I do want to talk a little bit about what happens when you enable and disable providers. So when you enable a new provider, then it can be used for new media, which makes sense. Now, when you disable provider, that means it cannot be used for new media. That makes sense. But then there's this question about, well, what about existing media? Let's say that we uncheck that box for YouTube. We have some YouTube content on the site. What should happen then? So what happens is that you can't add new media, but all of your existing YouTube media will continue to render until the day you take your site down. It's completely unaffected. When media renders oEmbed content, it never checks to see if that content is still allowed or not. If you think about how input filters work with like, HTML, which elements are allowed, which attributes are allowed, or whatnot, what you might expect is that when you uncheck that YouTube box, that YouTube content no longer renders like the way input filters work. That's not the way it works. If you think this is a security issue, maybe hit me up afterwards. All right, view mode. So what we did with our CMS is we have two media types that we use. We have remote video, which we use for a UNL Media Hub. And then we have images, and we're using two different, we're calling them narrow and we're calling them wide. Those are the two that we're using there. In the case of remote video, it's just going to render the video. Narrow and wide, what I did for this presentation was I just turned on the responsive image module. And when you turn it on, it has two responsive image modes by default, narrow and wide. So this is a one-to-one mapping. That narrow view mode is just rendering an image using the narrow responsive image style, the same for the wide view mode. And that's exactly what this slide says here. So we'll move on to the next slide, which says we're going to go to the live demo. And I'm going to try to, I'm sharing the whole screen, so we'll see what crazy things happen. Oh, no. Sweet. All right. That's going to be hard to see. Let me see if I can share just that screen. Okay, so we can see just that screen. So this is a Drupal 9 site with core modules turned on, media library. So the first thing that I'll show is that there's media types. So we have all of them right there. The two we're using are image and remote video. So when we go to the edit page, this is where that field mapping happens, right here. And then because these are proper entities, we can add fields. And so those mappings are being mapped to these fields that I created here. We can also customize our form display. And we on our CMS, we've customized this here. I just left it as it is, but there's customizations you can do. And then for the display, we have 4 different display mode, view modes that we can use. The two that I've customized and I've added are narrow and wide. And so just like I mentioned earlier, if I go to narrow, all we're doing is we're rendering the image field using the responsive formatter, using the narrow responsive image style. The same thing is true for wide. So that's what's happening there. And if I go to remote video, you can see the field mappings, all of these, which we talked about earlier. And this is that part where we can allow different providers. Now, I know in the slide it just showed Vimeo and YouTube. So how did I get the option to check or not check UNL Media Hub and Facebook? That's coming up in another slide. So again, we have all the fields, and on the display mode, remote video view mode, this is all that's going on here, not a whole lot to see. The place where you define your view modes, if you go to structure, display modes, view modes, this is where all the view modes on the site are defined. So in media, when I first turned it on, the only two that were here were full content and media library. I added narrow, remote video, and wide. And this is where you would click to go ahead and add those. The configuration for the oEmbed Providers module. So this first screen we have, this is where we can change that providers.json. We can change that to a different URL. We can also turn the fetch on and off. For allowed providers, this is everything that's in that providers.json file, plus any custom providers we define. When you check one of these boxes and hit save, now it becomes available to enable on a media type. So before you had to put this in a custom module. So we're providing the UI, so you don't have to write that custom module. And then we have custom providers. And in this case, we have now media have custom provider. All right, so now we're going to attempt to go back to the presentation. All right, and we're back in it. So the next thing I want to talk about is the media library. Because we have media, and it'd be really useful if there's some nice interface where we could upload things and manage media. So that's more or less what media library does. It also provides some integration with a CKEditor so we can embed things. So when we wanted to add that CKEditor integration, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to filter format, and first thing I do is I get rid of the default image button, and I replace it with the media embed button. So that's step one. Now we need to enable the embed media filter. What that's going to do is it uses a custom tag, Drupal-media. It stores a bunch of information. There's data attributes, custom data attributes. So when we check this box, that makes sure that when it renders, that it's not just some random media or Drupal media element that your browser doesn't understand. So that's what you need to do there. And there's also some configuration you need to do on the plugin. So there's three settings here. The first one's going to be the default view mode. So when you insert a media entity, what is the view mode that's going to be used when you first insert it? This is going to be whatever the default view mode is. The next setting here is what types of media are going to be allowable. In this case, we're only going to allow people to embed images and remote videos. And the last setting is you can go and you can edit embedded media in CKEditor, and you can change that view mode. So which view modes are going to be allowed? In this case, narrow and wide for images, remote video for remote videos. Okay, so let's go insert a video. Let's see what happens here. We click that button. It's going to open a modal that has images and remote videos available. So I clicked on the remote video tab. So there's two things we can do here. We can add a new one right here. So this is going to save our users some clicks because they don't have to go open another tab or leave this page to go upload a video. They can do it right here. Not upload, excuse me, add. Or you can also choose an existing video to insert. So this is the video that's been inserted. And then something I noticed immediately when I inserted my first video is there's this edit media button that just kind of looks weird. It's like it didn't get themed or something. So there's a core issue for this. It turns out to be a regression. They moved some CSS around in core. So on the left, above the kitten with the unicorn, is what it looks like now. After you use the patch, then it's going to turn into pencil icons floating in the upper right-hand corner. So that would be a good patch. That one's actually really easy to apply. I do want to talk about default view modes. If we just go ahead and look down at the bottom there to the source mode, we can see that there's the Drupal media element. Then we have like data align, data entity type, data entity UUID. You would think that Drupal would want to keep track of the view mode that's selected, and it does as long as it's not the default view mode. So let's say that narrow is the default view mode, and we insert an image using narrow. Drupal is not going to insert any information about that. If we go and we change it to wide, now that'll get inserted, and that's going to be stored in here as a data view mode. And it's going to say wide. The idea is that if it's default, we don't need to store it because we can just look it up. If it's overridden, then we store it because it's an override. And where you run into an issue is if you ever change your default view mode, then what happens? Let's say that you have a site and your user's been using it for a year, and maybe there's like, there's a blog section, and by default things are inserted as narrow. And then the designer makes some editorial changes. We want to use a different view mode as our default going forward. Well, what'll happen as soon as you change that default, everything on your site that used to be narrow is now wide instantaneously, and you don't know what was what because the data was never stored to begin with. You're going to have data loss. So that's an issue, something I want to make you aware of. There is a core issue for this. So take a look at this. Now we're going to jump over to what it looks like if you go and you click on that edit. So if we're going to edit that video, this is going to be the mode where we pop up. So we can do some things. We can align the video. We can add a caption to it. We can also select the display. Now the thing is that the only view mode that we even have configured for remote video is remote video. If we choose narrow or wide, it's going to go back to the default view mode, which is going to print the image and like all the field data below it. It's not going to be what our users expect or want. So why are those even options? So there's a module called Media Library Extras, and then there's a sub-module that I've offered at the invitation of one of the maintainers. And what it allows us to do is to have a configuration per media type. So this hasn't been committed yet. It still needs review to get committed, but we're using it in production right now. So this is what the config screen looks like now. So the first thing you do is you select, we're going to allow image and remote video. All those other settings are now per media type. So when the default view mode, when we insert an image, is going to be narrow. The default view mode when we insert a remote video is going to be remote video. Also, the view modes that are selectable can be set per media type. And this is going to take a confusing and bad user experience for your editors and make it something that isn't confusing for them. So now if we go back to that same edit modal for that video we inserted, what we'll see is that option is completely gone because there's only one. So why present a select element of one to someone? If we go to insert an image, it's going to be a similar thing. We can either upload one on the fly, or we can select one that's already in the media library. Now it's been inserted, and this was inserted as narrow. If we go edit it, this is going to be the modal that pops up. It's going to be like just the last one we saw. Under display, you don't have it open there, but the two options will be narrow and wide, so you can change that back and forth. When you first upload an image, you're going to be required to add alt text, which is going to be stored with the media entity. This is an opportunity for you to choose to either use that, in the case you just leave it empty, placeholder showing you what the text is. And you also have the option of overriding it. If that alternate text doesn't make sense in this context, you can override it here. Something else I wanted to mention is that when you go to style your media that's been embedded, let's say that you have something that's floated to the left or the right, and you want to add some padding. If it's floated right, maybe you want to add padding on the left, and vice versa. If it's on the left, you want to add padding to the right. You have enough classes to do that if the image is just by itself. If you add a caption to an image, or to, I guess any media that's being embedded, now it's going to wrap it in a figure element, and it's going to put your caption in the fig caption element, which is all semantically correct. It should do this, and this is a good thing that it does this. But we don't have the information on the figure element to be able to figure out which view mode is being set. It gives us alignment. It doesn't tell us which view mode is being set. So what I really needed in my use case was to know that this figure is embedded media, and to know that the view mode for the embedded media being used in the figure. So this solved that problem for me. How do we do that? This is the only code-heavy slide on the entire presentation. So we're going to use template pre-process filter caption, and you can look at this later on the slides. But basically, we're parsing out the view mode, then we're adding it as an attribute, and that's something you would need if you wanted to do that. There's some limitations we should talk about in terms of the CKEditor integration. The first one is going to be the CKEditor has this cool feature where you can add styles to elements. So if you want to put a class and paragraph, offer a couple of different classes that a user can put on paragraphs. They click in the paragraph, go over the styles, and they can select between those two or none. So that's a cool feature. I've used it on I think almost every site that I've built. The thing is that you can't do that with the core embed, media embed yet. The first one's an issue for that. Something that you need to solve before you can even get to that one is the second one. Styles, the element names can't have hyphens right now. So you need to solve that because Drupal media has a hyphen in it. So that needs to be solved before the first one can be solved. The second one, I believe, is reviewed and tested by community now. So perhaps we'll get that committed at some point. Something weird happens if you wrap an embedded media in a link. The alignment gets lost. So let's say that you have an image which is floated to the right. That's great. You put it in the link, the alignment gets lost. So just be aware of that. I'm not sure that there's an issue open for that. And then as far as I'm aware, there's no upgrade path if you're coming from oEmbed to core Drupal media. If there is, someone chime in on chat and let me know. But as far as I know, there's no easy way to do that. I have moved one site that I built as a freelancer from oEmbed to core. And anywhere there's an embed used, there's probably only 30, 35 of them. I just did that manually. If you have a site where you have thousands of these things and you need some programmatic way to do it, I'm not aware of a way to do that yet if it's out there. If you write it, certainly contribute it back to the Drupal open source community. I also want to talk about, let's say you want to link to PDFs or, an Excel document or something like that. So yeah, you can upload it to, media library. But if you go to embed it, that's going to be problematic because you're embedding a view mode. So you can insert the title of it, but you can't change the text. Most of the time when we when we link to PDFs or documents like that, we select the text and then we link to whatever the URL is. And you just can't do that with Core's media embed. So what we use a module called link it. And that will allow you to link to a PDF, which is a media library, in the way that you want to, where the text can be customized. So it's in media library where it should be. You can link to customize the text. There'll be lots of extra clicking for your users unless you use this other module, which was recently released called Link It Media Library. It modifies the Link It modal so that you can upload and interact with the media library right there without having to leave that page. So those are two modules you should take a look at. Okay, another live demo. And let's see in my notes what I'm supposed to look at here. Oh, no, that's not yet. Okay, so we're back here. When we want to go to media library, we go to content and media. And right now I have 2 images and two videos. That's all that's currently in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's go add some media. Let's add a remote video. Let's grab something from UNL's Media Hub. Apparently the campus rec opened up again last month. And we hold our breath and it added. If I were to go edit this, then we can see all the information that got pulled over. We have the title, who created it. This is the code that's going to be used when we render it, the iframe code. So these things are all here. We can also go add image. And we don't want that one. So we have that, and we have to put the alternate text in. So now we've done that. If we want to insert it into content, let's go to a basic page. So this loads media library. So we can grab this image, we can insert it, and this is going to be that narrow responsive image style. We can change it and make it wide. We can also add a caption. This is Asheville. This is really a cool place in the Republic of Georgia. So lo and behold, there it is. You can also, if we were to add a video, we can grab one of these, that one we just had, we can insert that. Look at the source. In this case, you can see that data view mode attribute is being set even though this is the default, so that's something that's desirable. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So eventually we're gonna have a bunch of content on our site, and it's just a matter of time before you wanna know what's being used where. I'm sure that you all run into situations where you have all these old files, PDFs and whatnot that are on your server, and you are afraid to delete them because they might be used somewhere. You'd have to parse every page on your site to go search all of them and figure out if it's being used or not. It's kind of like if you ever buy a house and somebody gives you the box of keys. It's all the keys that they think might go to the property, but they're not sure, so they've never thrown them away. Now you're holder of the box of keys, and you were also afraid to throw them away. This addresses the problem. It's called the entity uses module. And we're going to talk about just in the narrow confines of media. It does way more than what we're using it for. And so what it's going to do, what the end user is going to see, is there's going to be this usage tab that gets added. And it's going to tell them, for a particular media entity, it's going to tell them where it's being used. So in this case, we have a video that was uploaded or added. And we can see it's being used in the custom block, and it's being used in a node. Those are the two places where it's being used. Couple of things here. If it's being used multiple times on one page, it's only going to register once. So this isn't an actual usage, which is how many times it appears, or how many other entities it appears in. In this custom block, that looks fine there. If you use blocks that are inline blocks that are in Layout Builder, there's currently not a way to track those in a great way. That functionality is kind of missing. And then we can also add messages. If somebody goes to edit a media entity, they can see that, oh, this is being used somewhere. If they go delete a media entity, it's going to tell them, hey, there's some recorded uses. Maybe we should look at it first. So we have this turned on our distribution as well. And we have one more. We go to our media library. And let's just look at this one. Here, this one we just uploaded. it's warning us it's being used somewhere. So when we click on that, and then I guess it's going to open it in a new tab. It's telling us it's being used on test page. It's being telling us, which field it's being used in. So this is all good stuff. If we go look at the configuration, this will give you just kind of a sense of how much more it can be used for than what we're doing right here. What I would specifically point out, there's the idea of sourcing target entities, but what I would just focus your attention on is all these tracking plugins. Right now we only have 2 of them on. We have the core media one, and then we have Link It. So it can also track when we're using Link It to link to PDFs and whatnot. But it also can be used for entity reference fields. I'm not even sure what this layout builder really means, but I'm intrigued by it. I want to try it. So there's a bunch going on there, and this will be something that you'll definitely want to use. The nice thing is you don't have to have this when you first launch your site. You can add this later. There's a batch update feature, so it can go through and it'll parse all your content again. So if you're already using this, you already have this problem, trying to figure out what content's being used, they make it stupid simple for you. Okay, and then that's it. I am out of slides. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up for any questions or thoughts that folks have.
Okay, I've captured great talk, Chris. By the way, a lot of very useful and helpful information. Thank you. First question that came in chat was about the crop API in comparison to some other tools that can crop in media. Do you have any information or details on that?
I have used crop. It's not currently something I've deployed at Nebraska. I did use it on one freelance project, and if you're asking for me to compare between modules, I'm just not in a position to do that right now. But I think it's crop API is the one that we've used. Oh, you're saying it looks like you can use crop or media browser, but both. That would be annoying if you couldn't use both. So yeah, that'd be something to look into. I just haven't tried using the 2 of them together.
Next question should be hopefully a simple. Can you share the slides?
Yes. I got an email earlier today saying, hey, please email us your slides and we'll post them. So I'll be doing that here shortly.
Awesome. Okay. Next question, and maybe the last, if I am correct. What is the best way to set up the ability to rotate a user photo that they have already uploaded? That is sideways or upside down?
I'm sure there's some module out there. That's not something we've allowed our users to do is once you upload an image to manipulate it. There is an image with there is an issue where sometimes I'm trying to remember specifically that when somebody might send you an image from their phone and it looks like it's a portrait. They send it to you and now it's landscape. There is an image filter that allows you to parse that data from the image and go ahead and make the adjustment when the image style is being rendered. I can't remember what that is off the top of my head. That's something that happens automatically, and it wasn't something I did as part of this demo.
Cool. Okay, and there's some good comments in the chat about the image EXIF module as well, possibly. Might help with that. Okay, cool. And then last question that just came in on chat. Are you aware of any issues using the focal point module?
So I haven't. Okay, so I've used the focal point module. I've used Drupal core, media library, all that. I haven't tried using them together. Where I've used focal point is, let's say you have some profile for a user and they upload their image to a field. That's where I've enabled focal point. So I haven't tried that particular piece yet. But I would hope they'd work together. If they don't, then at this point it'd be kind of on I guess focal point to figure that out since core is core.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, I believe. One clarifying comment: the iPhone orientation fix is exif_orientation. By the way, through chat.
Is that the name of the module, Jay?
I think the answer is yes.
Okay. There's another one that has like a whole bunch of image folders that will, I think, do it too.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what that one is off the top of my head, but just it can be done. And it'd be kind of nice if that was in there just out by default, because the first time it happens, you're just kind of scratching your head. It's like, well, what's going on?
Okay, great. Any other final questions from anyone? We are at time officially, but I can keep an eye on chat for a second. Okay, I guess we'll take that as a no. Great job, Chris. Thank you so much for your presentation and your insights here. This was really great. I certainly learned a lot, so thank you so much.